Another day, another strike. We're here again. We've seen this before. What are you thinking of getting out of this one?
Well, what we're thinking of getting out of this one is simply because we've now shown that we are capable of doing it again. As you can see, we've got a few steering wheel attendants that we got here because they're not professional drivers. Because if they're professional drivers, they would know why we're striking, and they wouldn't need to be asking silly questions on why. They don't understand why we need to be striking. They don't understand the reason why we're striking, and it serves no purpose, and they can't see any reason why it should be. You know what? And then me personally, and everybody who's here will tell you, is we were all born to have equal rights and justice for all. And unfortunately, we as drivers have not had equal rights and justice for us since privatisation. So Boris Johnson, this is my message to you. It's a conflict of interest, you being the head of TfL. We don't want you to be involved anymore. We don't want TfL to be involved anymore. We want the Minister of Transport to be involved, because what we want to know is why is it rules and regulations are broken on every single time we strike to get buses out on the road. Because at the end of the day, we've got buses going on the road that companies have done things that they're not supposed to do. Where I, on the other hand, did half of what they allowed to happen today, and the police should be ashamed of themselves, because at the end of the day, buses are passing overloaded with people on the platform area and all the rest of it, which is a safety hazard. And they're telling us about health and safety. That is a safety hazard, and they're allowing that to happen all the time. So you know what? I personally think that, again, I hope the drivers who went out today will realise that they made a grave mistake, and they will join us the next time on the Friday of next week and on the Monday, because on the Monday the troops will be walking out as well. And you know what? We were proud for what we've done today. I am not ashamed of anything I've done today, because you know what? We are here fighting for our equal rights and justice that we deserve. And at the end of the day, what people got to realise, and you know the drivers that drove today, what they need to ask themselves is, at the end of the day, do they feel that, you know what, if certain people before us, our forefathers, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King and so forth, yeah, if they sat down and listened to people saying it will never happen, or I should say, I know for myself personally, and everybody who's here will know that we wouldn't be where we are today, because they sacrificed their life for us. Yes, when they sacrificed their life for us, at the end of the day, these drivers that went out to go and drive today, which they can't class themselves as drivers, because you know what, they're not in the same category as myself and the people who's striking, because you know why? Those people sacrificed their life so we could have better. Yeah? And at the end of the day, they are complaining and arguing about a day's pay package, 2 days pay package, 3 days pay package. It doesn't matter how much it takes, we're going to keep going. Nobody's going to stop us. Nobody's going to make us not do what we have to do. And nobody's going to stop us from getting what we're supposed to get. All we're asking for is equal rights, equal pay. The passengers, as I said before, knew what was going on in the bus industry with the privatisation. They would not get on a bus. So you know what? We're doing it not just for us, for them. Because at the end of the day, if they look into the history of all these private companies, go ahead and so forth, which are bigger organisations, their area directors and area finance managers are getting £2 million a year payment. £1.5 million payment, and what we get? Absolutely nothing. And what they tell us is because it's a private organisation. It's not private, because you know why? TfL takes public money to pay these route management companies. They're not bus companies, because they don't own nothing. They can't alter no routes. They are route management companies. So what we need to start referring them to as route management companies. Don't give them the privilege of bus companies, because they're not bus companies. Because if they were bus companies, they would understand what their job was and to treat their staff with respect and manners.
Your governor, Boris Johnson, is probably in his house in front of the fireplace, getting hot and feeling very, very nice today. And you are right here in the cold. protesting, striking about pay deals. Now, tell me, what are the highlights of today's strike?
The highlights of today's strike is that, you know what, unity. Drivers are finally coming together. For 30 years, this industry has been separated, and it's the age-old thing of divide and conquer. So where they've been trying to divide and conquer us for decades, we now, as drivers, realise that we're no longer Bellio drivers, we're no longer Central drivers, we're no longer Stagecoach drivers, we're no longer Riva drivers, we are bus drivers, and we are family. So when we're out on the road, we have a lot of respect for each other now, because we realise we all do the same job. So we got to stand up for each other no matter what. I don't care what it takes. I will stand up for my fellow bus driver, my fellow PSV professional driver, to get what we got to get. Don't care how long it takes, don't care how cold it is, I will be here. And I will lead my troops the same way I've led them today. And we, as I said before, we are not ashamed of anything. Yeah? And at the end of it, we have our rights. And at the end of it, until we are heard, and somebody takes us seriously, it's not going to stop. It will never stop.
And how will you compare today's strike to the previous strike?
But today's strike, as I said, you've got a lot more people out there, and the reason why they've got a lot more people out there because there's been a lot of scaremongering.
An agency worker.
Scaremongering with these companies.
Agency worker.
Right?
Agency worker as well.
Yeah, well, there's had agency workers and that out there, yes, I agree. But there's been a lot of scaremongering in the sense of like people talking rubbish about this is going to happen, that's not going to happen. They don't know why we're striking and why we're supposed to do this. They don't know what the union's doing. It's not about the union. Yeah? We as drivers need to stand together to make our voices heard, because it's the first time in 30 years we are able to get our voices heard legally. So if we give up this opportunity, we will never get this opportunity again. Boris Johnson, TfL and the companies are absolutely upset and are completely dismayed about what has happened here. And at the end of the day, they don't know what to do next, because they don't know what's going to happen next. All they know is that basically there is a hardcore people which we will continue to do what we have to do.
I know you have to do what you have to do, but people outside, I'm talking about passengers, they were walking. The streets were like carnivals again. You've done it, good for bus drivers, but do you have concerns for all the bus passengers who are out there who could not get buses to wherever they want to go to?
Right, again, this is like last time when we had a conversation. We do think about the buses. This is not a strike just about pay. It's not a strike about just our pay and conditions. It's about basically getting all the things that are wrong with this private organisations right. Because if the passengers only knew what went on, they wouldn't get on a bus. Because if I was to ask you, as a general member of the public, and I said to you, how would you feel that your loved one was on a bus where basically a driver has been driving for 9 hours solid and has only had a 40-minute break? How safe would you feel on that bus? How if I told you, and all drivers in London will know this, if I told you at the end of the day, yeah, that we drivers report defects and problems on a bus all the time, and half the time they don't get done because it's all about profits. It's not about service, it's not about running the buses, it's about getting the buses on the road to make money. Whether the bus should be on the road or not, there are plenty of examples that are going on. This is why we don't want TfL to be involved. We want the Minister of Transport to get involved and the higher bodies to start investigating these companies for all the wrongdoing. Because as I said today, they have broken so many rules and regulations to get buses out on the road, which at the end of the day, if I'd done half of the things they're allowed today, I could lose my job.
When the underground go on strike, everyone listens to them, and everyone feels the pain, because when there's no underground, people can't get to wherever they want to go smoothly. When bus drivers are striking, bus drivers seem to be on a walkover, isn't it?
Yeah, we're on walkover. over because this is an issue that where I said earlier, we have professional drivers and we have bums on seats and steering wheel attendants. What I mean by bums on seats and steering wheel attendants is that companies pick people up off the road or go to foreign countries and bring people over here to drive a bus and train them within 3 weeks. You tell me as a general member of the public, how can you tell me you got a professional driver behind the steering wheel after 3 weeks of training?
Yeah, but Boris Johnson said anybody can be a bus driver.
Yeah. Boris Johnson says anybody can be a bus driver. So why has he never come to visit any of the bus garages to speak to the drivers to find out what the core problems is? Because he doesn't care about bus drivers. You know what? As I said, we work for one of the most iconic cities in the world. Boris has just spent millions of pounds on the reinvestment of a new bus. Yeah? They've got money to spend on the reinvestment of a new bus, which is exactly the same thing as a bendy bus, because they promised conductors were going to be on them. Now, all of a sudden, there ain't going to be no conductors. It's going to be like bendy buses where people come on and touch on and they expect people to be honest. Now, at the end of the day, you tell me what's the difference between the RM, the new RM, and the bendy bus. There's no difference. The only difference is that bendy bus takes more people. But what Boris wanted to do is make a mark whilst he was in power. And now, if he has money to waste, to do things like that, he needs to have money to pay the drivers for the job they do.
The general public will be watching this. Yes. Your bus operators will be watching this. Yes. And also your governor, Boris Johnson, will be watching this. And now the drivers who had actually gone out to drive the bus, which majority of the bus passengers will love them. They will think they're the real bus drivers. What message would you like to send to them?
Well, for me, as I said before, I would like, at the end of the day, I'm not interested in Boris coming to see us anymore, because Boris is no longer an issue. Because you know what, as he said, he is the chairman of TfL, so it's a conflict of interest, so it's pointless we even talking to him. We want to talk to somebody, and we want the union to deal with somebody above Boris Johnson's head, above TfL's head, because we want a full investigation into all of these private companies and the amount of money they're making, yeah, and not reinvesting into the industry by not paying the drivers a correct wage. Because how can you tell me this is justified, considering that we are the heartline and bloodline of London, and a bus driver can't even walk into a bank and get a mortgage or one-bedroom flat? You tell me how disgraceful that is, because it's not only just for us, nurses, doctors, teachers, all these important jobs which are public workers' jobs, nobody gives a damn about. And all we're doing is, with these private companies, we're having a race to the bottom of pay and condition, because all these companies are doing they're putting bids to try and beat the next one to get the job done as cheap as possible. So we're not having equal rights, and with this it creates discrimination. And why it creates discrimination is because drivers who have been with a company for a longer period of time, they get discriminated against because now another company is driving a route or doing buses out there for less money than what they're paying me. So when they want to then get rid of me because I'm costing more money. Now you tell me, how is that equal? How is that fair? We're all born to have equal rights and justice for all. Yeah? So at the end of the day, Boris needs to understand we're not being treated fairly, and because we're not being treated fairly, bus drivers are fed up and no longer going to sit down and accept it. So if he wants this on his head, it will carry on, and it will carry on, because we're not going to stop, as I said before, because he should be ashamed of himself, he should be embarrassed, he should be disgraced, because at the end of the day, he has cycles out on the road, and we have so much obstacles that we have to observe on the road more than anything else, and then we only get paid as a new driver around 17,000 for a year. A senior driver, you're looking at about 26,000, 24,000 pounds. A trainee tube driver gets 29,000 as a trainee. I have to do rest days and overtime just to get that. Yeah? All we want is an equal and fair pay, because we don't want turn around and say, well, we want 50,000, 40,000. We should be in line with the trains and tubes, but we just want a reasonable, livable wage.
Finally, Abelian bus drivers and Woolworth depots are becoming iconic. You are becoming very familiar with television companies nowadays. Obviously, it means What you are actually fighting for is the message is being carried out to the general public around the world. Now, this strike, if it doesn't work now, what happens next?
Well, I'll tell you something. There's no way this strike will never work. Because you know why? Every time we strike, it costs TFL. Every time we strike, it costs the company. So you know what? We don't mind them paying. Because you know what? My wage in comparison to what they have to pay out because of everything that's happening, at the end of the day,
I'm going home. I'm finished 6 o'clock.
Yeah,
I'm
so
here at 6 o'clock.
Now, as I said, all we want is just to be treated fairly. They have more recognition and care for cats and dogs than they do for us. As I keep saying, sometimes we have to have a break on a Sunday morning up at Elephant Castle as a roadside break. You got nowhere to wash your hands, you got nowhere to go and use the toilet, you got nowhere to go and have something to eat. And this is where I said originally that if you're a general member of the public, how would you feel for me to tell you a driver has been driving 9 hours and only had a 40-minute break and you're sitting on that bus? So when you hear buses having accidents, yeah, it's not because the driver can't drive, it's because the driver is driving under fatigue, the driver is driving under stress, the driver is driving because under a situation of where he may not be eating anything properly for the day.
Can I have your autograph?
Well, I've done it again.
That was the last one. He talks too much.